Beth and I really miss spending time with our granddaughters. Sylvia Rose is a little over 3 years old, and our youngest now, Mackenzie Grace, is only 2 weeks old. And we were fortunate to spend our first few hours with her last weekend, and we're hoping to be able to spend some more time with her this weekend. But thank goodness for FaceTime, and thank goodness for all the digital pictures that my daughters are sending us. Because they really do help us feel connected. It's not as good as the real thing as holding them or touching them, physically playing with them, but it really is very, very helpful, and it does keep us connected with them and with our daughters and their families. Interestingly, in the Wall Street Journal this past week, there was an article entitled, "Digital Grandparenting is Now Essential." All I can say is amen to that. And in the article, they were describing several families where the grandparents are connected digitally through Zoom or FaceTime, and they really are helping the parents parent their own children. And so the grandparents are connecting and sometimes playing games with them. Sometimes they're teaching them, but the parents and the grandparents are working in a way that the parents are saying are very, very helpful. And of course, it's very important to the grandparents to maintain this kind of a connection. As Arturo mentioned in the last single take, the next few ones that we're doing are going to really be focusing more on issues that the pandemic has in parenting issues and also grandparenting issues. In 2 Timothy 1:5, Paul writes concerning Timothy. Now, Timothy, you have to understand, was his right-hand man. He relied, I'm sure it was his closest disciple of Jesus. It was someone who he relied upon heavily. And Timothy eventually became the bishop of the Christian church in Ephesus, which is located in what is now called Western Turkey. But he writes this, it's only in verse 5. He says, "I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you." So there is a way in which implicitly he is commending his grandmother, Lois, for, in a way, Timothy's faith. Lois's faith was transferred to Eunice's faith, and Eunice's faith was then transferred in a way to Timothy. And so their role modeling and their lived faith had a powerful impact on Timothy. So there's a way in which this grandmother had a very important influence on a very important disciple, an early disciple of the church, Timothy. But there's another way in which grandparents can play a very important role in the lives of children, and that is this: grandparents can mediate grace. Now, what does that mean? We know that as parents, we have an incredible responsibility. We want to show our children that we love them unconditionally, no matter what. At the same time, we need to discipline them. We want to motivate them and encourage them so that they discover what their gifts are. We want them to flourish at life. We want them to be successful in living life. And it's a fine balance. It's hard to do that. And because we're imperfect people and we're imperfect parents, frequently we end up giving the message, "I love you if. I love you if you obey me. I love you if you do what I want you to do. I love you if you get good grades. I love you if you excel at athletics or you get an athletic scholarship. I'll love you if you perform well as a musician or as a dancer." You name it. But frequently, and we don't want to do this, but frequently we just give this message that I love you if. And this is where grandparents come in, and this is where they can have such an important role, because we're not really responsible for the discipline. Yeah, if we're watching the kids, we might have to discipline them a little, but there's a way in which grandparents, because we don't have to worry so much and focus on discipline, we can just love them in a way that they can feel loved. When grandmother or grandfather come, they can feel embraced and loved. They can that is really an important role. And that's what my professor in pastoral psychology, who first coined the term, meant. We mediate grace. And so I want to encourage parents, and if your grandparents are available, work together, invite them into this, because grandparents mediate God's grace. Amen.